Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. A man is fighting for his life tonight after a shooting in North York near Yonge and Sheppard. The gunfire erupting just hours before a prayer walk with the police chief, mayor and faith leaders in attendance as the city grapples with a rise in gun violence this year. Ali Chiasson has more.
So, Kelda, we know that this shooting happened inside the parking garage of this condo behind me here. And for those of you familiar with the Yonge and Sheppard area, you know exactly where this happened. It's one of the two tall green condo buildings that really mark the intersection of Yonge and Sheppard. It happened just beyond the entryway of the parking garage. And it also happened at the same time that the Toronto police were out across the city today talking about community safety. And as you can imagine, certainly the residents of this building aren't feeling so safe since this happened.
Nobody told us anything until we got it.
Yeah, the commotion.
The commotion, the ambulance, the sirens of the police cars.
I thought it was construction, right?
Yeah, we thought it was construction because everything that's going on here, right? But this is definitely
and then the cops came. Sirens.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Bullets rang out just after the noon hour.
It was a construction like that, clack, 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 right? Because I was like, feeding my dog and take him out. And then I'm like, I recognize that sound, right?
A 30-year-old man was shot inside the parking garage of this condo near Yonge and Sheppard.
I came down to this building over here, and then they said somebody got shot at the P1 level.
The 30-year-old male is in life-threatening condition, and we have officers on scene that are currently canvassing, looking for witnesses, looking for video. At this time, I do not have any suspect descriptions to give you.
That part is unnerving for residents to hear. However,
we don't have anything to indicate, point to a risk to public safety. We have no other active attacks or anything going on right now, no other shootings in the vicinity.
I'm honestly not shocked because there's a lot of things that happen here and security's not that great.
Grim timing for a police-led prayer walk. These happen throughout the city, throughout the year, as a show of the police and faith leaders' commitment to public safety. Mayor Olivia Chow and Police Chief Myron Demkew attended one of them today.
Any shooting in the city is one shooting too many, and we remain laser focused on ensuring the safety of our communities, focusing on gun violence as a priority for us as an organization.
Those that disobey law needs to be caught, and I'm thankful for the police officers to be here supporting the community. Too many guns on the street, we have to deal with it, and collectively we are stronger.
Kelda, these prayer walks are largely about addressing the root causes of gun violence. It is still too early to really know the circumstances of this shooting here, considering a suspect is still at large and a victim here still fighting for their lives in hospital. The shooting happening only a few hours ago. Kelda.
Thanks, Ali. Our Ali Chiasson reporting from North York tonight. 4 people are dead and 1 is in hospital tonight after a fiery single vehicle crash on Lakeshore Boulevard near Cherry Street. It happened shortly after midnight. Toronto police saying it appears speed was a factor. Greg Ross has the latest.
It happened just after midnight. This Tesla was traveling eastbound on Lakeshore Boulevard near Cherry Street.
The vehicle lost control, struck a guardrail, and then struck a concrete pillar.
There were 5 people in the car, 2 women and 3 men, all in their 20s or 30s. At least one witness tried to help them escape.
At the time of the collision, a motorist that was passing by stopped and provided assistance and was able to extricate one of the females in the vehicle. She's been since transported to the hospital in non-life-threatening condition.
Before any of the other people in the vehicle could get out, the car became engulfed in flames. The other 4 occupants were pronounced dead shortly after fire crews were able to get the blaze under control.
Under the direction of the coroner's office and the Toronto Police Service, Toronto firefighters carefully extricated the bodies and they are now in the care of the Office of the Chief Coroner.
At this point, it's not clear if the vehicle's battery cells were the cause of the fire.
Certainly the intensity of the fire is directly linked to the battery cells in the Tesla.
The deputy fire chief says that one of the battery cells was ejected from the Tesla during the crash, creating a safety hazard.
Certainly one of the concerns that we do have with these types of issues is thermal runaway and the fact that these can reignite for up to weeks and weeks later.
As a result, this area of the Lakeshore had to be closed down for longer than usual as fire crews took extra precautions to transport the battery cell to a safe location.
We worked with Transportation Services, Solid Waste and Parks and Recreation to arrange for a dumpster to arrive where the Toronto Fire Service placed the ejected cell into the dumpster, covered it with sand, and we have escorted that dumpster up to a yard to make sure that it is safely disposed of.
This is the second deadly crash on this part of the Lakeshore in the past year. Back in January, an 18-year-old man was killed when he lost control of his vehicle and struck another car before going into the Keating Channel. Investigators are now trying to determine how the driver lost control in this latest collision.
We have gathered some evidence so far to suggest that speed was a factor.
Police are talking to witnesses and reviewing video footage from the area. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A security guard working at a downtown Dollarama is facing assault charges after allegedly beating up a customer on Tuesday. Another customer who witnessed the beating and filmed part of it says while it wasn't unprovoked, the escalation of violence, some of which you will see in this story, was alarming. Chris Glover has more.
When Ricky Gomez saw this beatdown in progress, he documented it and called for help.
Call the 911. I don't even know what to do. At some point I started to record, but at some point when I stopped to record, I was like, this guy's gonna kill this poor guy.
He says Tuesday, around 3:15 p.m. at the Queen and Sherbourne Dollarama, he saw another customer with a leaky coffee cup trying to go inside when a security guard grabbed him, ripped his shirt, and wouldn't let him go.
Let me go, let me go. And the guy was trying to pull him out, and then the guy spit on the security guy. And once he did that, the security guy started to become crazy. He started to punch his face.
Gomez says the worst of the violence happened before he thought to record.
He take him from the neck with both hands and throw him to the wall and start to punch his face. He punched his face like 6 times. And then when the guy fell down to the floor, he started to kick his face, literally kicking his head like another 6 times. The guy was vulnerable since the first moment when he started to punch his face. The poor guy couldn't do anything.
In a statement, Dollarama wrote it does not authorize the use of force in any situation. Upon learning of this incident, Dollarama put the third-party security firm on notice while we investigate why protocol was not followed.
They cannot use excessive force. The test is, was it reasonable under the circumstances?
Personal injury lawyer Jasmine Daya says even if the customer spat on the guard, even potentially Dollarama, could be liable for the customer's injuries.
I believe it's excessive to become physically aggressive if someone spits on you. Yes, it's not nice, and maybe that's a knee-jerk reaction, but this is not just 2 friends, 2 buddies. This is someone in the course of their employment, and they must follow the rules and responsibilities that come with that. And a security guard punching someone because they were spit on, if that is in fact the case, I view that as excessive force.
Gomez says he's speaking out about the violent incident to prevent future ones.
I told him, like, you have to report this because that could happen to everyone, to me, to anyone.
Toronto police confirmed the guard has now been charged with assault. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
The TTC plans to stop allowing people to seek refuge on its parked buses this winter, ending a practice that it had in place last winter due to the lack of shelter spaces in the city. Dale Manukduk has more on why.
From November 15, 2023 to April of this year, and in response to the number of unhoused people seeking shelter across the transit network, the TTC operated its bus transport initiative. It was intended to move people from Union and Spadina stations to warming centers and shelters, but because of the lack of space in the shelter system, people ended up sleeping on the buses.
What we did last winter was that we parked as many as 7 buses at Spadina Station. We had heaters, we had bathroom facilities, we had security, we had housing counselor or homeless counselors on site. So basically we had set up these sort of makeshift shelters, if you will.
While the TTC provided transport and a temporary warming location on 5,914 occasions last winter, only 98 individuals were transported to warming centers. Earlier this week, the city released its winter services plan for people experiencing homelessness, saying an additional 530 temporary spaces in existing shelters and 3 temporary respite centers will be made available. That is part of the reason the TTC is recommending it end the bus shelter program.
We also spoke to, advocates and others who said, this wasn't the most humane way to have people sheltered. We don't disagree. We are not in the business of housing people. We're a transit agency.
Not all members of the TTC board thought it was a good idea to begin with.
It shouldn't be a basic core part of the system that we become reliant on. I mean, the fact that we're even having a conversation about using buses to house people, I think speaks volumes about what a failure every level of government has been when it comes to supporting our community's most vulnerable.
While many advocates agree the bus shelters are inhumane, it did provide a respite from the elements for the more than 200 people turned away every night from the shelter system.
We're still seeing more and more barriers existing because of shelter system capacity. And so the demand is increasing, and yet this is another step, it sounds like, backwards from providing just basic heat and care for people.
TTC staff are recommending the use of buses for transport to shelters and warming centers only when the temperature reaches minus 15 degrees Celsius. However,
there are some, we know this, that there are some who will not take up those shelter spaces. They may seek shelter on a TTC vehicle, and if they're not causing any kind of issue, if they're not suffering any kind of crisis or trauma, they'll be allowed to just ride the system in peace because it's a humane thing to do when it's very, very cold in the winter months.
The recommendations go to the TTC board next week. Del Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
The federal government has announced a major cut to immigration. It's reducing permanent immigration levels by at least 20%.
Today, we're announcing that we will reduce the number of immigrants we bring in over the next 3 years, which will result in a pause in the population growth over the next 2 years. This builds on our previously announced measures to cap international student permits and reform the temporary foreign worker program.
Trudeau said that following the pandemic, the government didn't get the balance quite right. Today's announcement follows criticism that population growth played a role in the lack of housing and affordability. The Ontario government says the Trudeau government only has itself to blame for having to come to this. A recent provincial stat shows 45% of all immigrants who come to the country choose to settle in Ontario. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has more reaction from our province.
They created this problem and they have to fix it.
The federal plan to cut immigration numbers is welcomed by Ontario's Labour and Immigration Minister, though he worries about how the feds plan to do it.
What I do fundamentally disagree with is doing it on the backs of our provincial nominee program, which is Ontario's strongest tool to bring in skilled trades worker, women and men in healthcare professions.
That program is for immigrants, including international students who have a job offer from an employer here. It's based on job needs in the province. Minister Piccini says he doesn't know how the numbers under that program will be affected, but he says it will be reduced. The NDP opposition says the province wasn't doing enough to keep up.
Of course, immigration is being cut because we are not building the homes. We are not addressing the social infrastructure that we need actually at this point.
Toronto's mayor also responded.
Yes, we have a housing crisis, but the housing crisis was created after 3 decades of every levels of government not building non-market housing.
Her biggest worry is the people affected.
Yeah, I am concerned about all of those people that have been waiting to bring their mom and dad to Canada. Family reunification.
One advocate for immigrants points the finger at the province for the problem.
The primary crisis here has been caused by the provinces. Housing policy, education policy, healthcare policy, labor policy are all provincial jurisdiction.
It's still unclear exactly what the reduced numbers will be for Ontario. Minister Piccini says he tried to get in touch with the federal minister last night, but he didn't hear back. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
This is my space, it's my room. That's where I just let everything go. I don't have to worry about outside or anything anymore.
Coming up, it's being called the first of its kind in Canada. A farmhouse in Pickering has been turned into transitional housing for people experiencing homelessness. But the goal of the project is to provide people with more than just a roof over their heads. We'll explain after the break. Welcome back. Mayor Olivia Chow presenting the key to the city this morning to leading childcare advocate and researcher Martha Friendly.
I'm privileged to stand here and recognize the efforts of Martha Friendly, who has made Toronto a better place for kids, for our children, for families, for all of us.
Friendly has been advocating for early childhood education and care in Canada for more than 50 years. She founded the Child Care Resource and Research Unit in the 1980s and has played a critical role in shaping policies that support children, families, and women. The key to the city is the highest honor granted by the mayor to an individual or group. A charity in Durham Region is touting the launch of what they are calling a first-of-its-kind housing initiative. They've turned an old farmhouse into a transitional home for people experiencing homelessness. And as Tyreek Reed explains, the goal is to provide tenants with more than just a roof over their heads.
This is my space, it's my room. That's where I just let everything go. I don't have to worry about outside or anything anymore.
Alan Phillips says he spent years being homeless and living on the streets of Pickering, Ontario. Now he has a room of his own at what was once an old and vacant farmhouse. It's now been turned into transitional housing for people experiencing homelessness.
What we are trying to do is set up a farm, hobby farm, where the residents can take care of animals as well. We take care of them, and hopefully they're able to move forward in their life.
The property was originally meant to be developed during the Greenbelt land swap, but that fell through. So the dedicated advocacy resource support charity and regional councillors saw an opportunity. They realized they could turn the vacant house into an affordable space for housing. The property was then donated to the charity by TAC Developments. It now houses 7 people.
Here we have rent that is only the portion of their income supplement. So it's 58%. So for example, somebody who's on Ontario Works pays $410.
They're calling the project the first of its kind in Canada. The house helps support residents through an agricultural lens by farming and growing their own food.
One of the problems with being on an income supplement is there's not a lot of room for food. Being able to grow your own food, it tastes better. It's organic. It gives you a lot of satisfaction to have grown your food, but also it helps them get through the end of the month.
There are currently 6 emergency shelters in Durham Region with a total of 190 beds. And while they do offer some relief, workers and residents say transitional houses like the farmhouse are a better solution to ending homelessness.
The problem is that many individuals have had really bad experiences in shelters. They've had bad experiences because they're exposed to, in some cases, individuals with serious mental health problems, alcoholism, drug addiction, but there's no stability.
You're off the streets, but there's not really a lot of help in some of the shelters for you. This is heaven for me.
While it may be the first of its kind, the charity doesn't plan on it being the last.
So we will continue to develop farmhouses, anything that we can on the lands that are available to us.
She says she's hopeful governments will follow. Tyreek Reed, CBC News, Pickering.
Hey, it's Dwight Drummond from CBC Toronto. I've been hearing from folks wondering where I've been and what we've been working on. Well, the team and I have been developing a new local live streaming channel. Welcome to the CBC Toronto newsroom. CBC has officially launched our first 2 local news streaming channels, CBC News BC and CBC News Toronto. And there's a commitment to launch another 12 local streams across Canada within a year. It is all part of an effort to provide free, live, 24/7 local news to our audience across more platforms. We'll deliver headlines, breaking news, weather, and live programming, everything that matters to our communities. And where can you find us? The CBC News Toronto streaming channel is available on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and on internet-connected TVs like the Roku channel, Samsung, and LG. We know people get news from different places. Now we are available to you live and on demand anytime, anywhere. You pick the digital platform from smartphones to computers to smart TVs, and we'll see you there.
Colette, we'll need our jackets and maybe our umbrellas as well tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we need a few things. That's right. It's that time of year where it's either layers or, yeah, you still need the umbrella, but at least we're not, looking at the snow flying. That will come this weekend, even a chance in the Ottawa Valley. There could be a few flurries coming down. So let's just deal with the frost advisory. We'll stick with that for now. Mississauga, Brampton as well for the Niagara region. You do have that frost advisory for tonight, so you still have that chance to protect your tender vegetation, especially with the growing season ongoing there through Niagara. Look at today's highs. Yeah, we got a lot of areas where we got up to the double digits, and you're seeing them all across the board here. So maybe it was a cooler start in the morning, but then things got going and kind of chugging along. We had that beautiful, long time where we were dealing with temperatures way above seasonal. We were in a broad ridge, and now looking at the jet stream, we have a trough that's moved in behind that cold front. And tomorrow, another front that's going to come through. And although it doesn't have a lot of moisture with it, it too will bring us a chance for some showers and just kind of keep the temperatures a little bit cool. And by the way, you're seeing some of the activity here on the eastern seaboard, the remnants of what was Hurricane Oscar making their way towards Atlantic Canada. So some heavy rains, especially for eastern Newfoundland, but elsewhere as well. So we do have the trough. We'll get a ridge coming back in next week, and that will allow the temperatures to really bump up once we get to kind of Tuesday and Wednesday. Yes, approaching Halloween. More on that to come, but let's just check out this cold front. We can go in for a closer look. So the clouds roll in the morning. You will have showers in the morning back through southwestern Ontario, but the GTA, it should be dry until we get to the afternoon hours. Then we do have some of these scattered showers coming through. Then behind that, we'll get into general clearing as we set up into the weekend. And I say general because the wind flow will be from the northwest. And with that coming across the lakes, it means we could have the odd kind of pop-up shower, a little lake effect shower isolated into not only Saturday, but that risk into Sunday as well. But otherwise, it is a pretty good looking weekend coming our way. Overnight temperatures then tonight down to 3 degrees in Toronto, and then that high tomorrow up to 14. For Saturday, 12 degrees, slim chance of showers both then and into Sunday as well. And then it's just kind of getting towards the end of this 5-day, but you see that bump up in those temperatures coming on Tuesday. It lingers into Wednesday, Thursday too.
Okay, good. Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night, everyone.